soft whispers. It hadn't been long since I went to bed, but my sleep was already thick as the cream that sets over hot milk. My nightie was soaked with sweat and sticking to my back. It felt cold behind my ears. My neck and hair were wet too. Perhaps I wouldn't have woken up, but the sound of the phone ringing, relentlessly, I had no choice. Hello? Hello? Were you sleeping, my dear? Yes. My voice was heavy. I wouldn't have called you at this hour. I knew you would be sleeping. Ummi hesitated a moment. Abid has come from the village. Abid? Which Abid? Oh, haven't you woken up fully yet? Mujawar Sahib's son. Now he is the Mujawar of the Shamir Ali Dargah and attends to the shrine. What does he want? You know the Urz festival is happening there at the end of this month. There must be someone from our family present during the sandalwood ritual. Iqbal is thousands of miles away. At least you have to be there, my daughter. Me? What is there to be shocked about? No, Ami, of all things, for the sandalwood. Leave it. I cannot talk much. Abid said he will come there. Talk to him and make arrangements. Dear, can we let go of family traditions? Those were words of hurt. Unwilling to argue further, I said, don't send him now. Let him come in an hour. Let's see. I put down the phone and drew the curtains apart. It was blazing hot outside. Inside, too, my life was soaked in the heat of difficulties. I went and fell on the bed again. Abid has come from the village. The village, Malinahali, my grandparents' village. We went once a year for the Urz festival because Abbajan forced us. Ammi used to go because he insisted. A village with about 100 houses, of which more than 60 had Muslim families. It was not just Aji's maternal home. Everyone in the village was related to her as well. Aji was lean, fair, and tall. She used to wear skirts made of sussy silk and white full-sleeved shirts with Nehru collars. On top of the shirt, which revealed not an inch of stomach, back, or hands, she wore either a white mull or chikan embroidered divani. In her shirt pocket, a box of snuff, small change, a piece of white ribbon for the hair, a few chalk pieces, some bits of pencils, gray knicker seeds, 1 or 2 pens. In the evenings, Aja would sit on the expansive jagali in front of the house, grinding the tobacco on stone and mixing the snuff gently with butter, while a little distance away, leaning against the door, sat Aji. On her lap and around her we sat, that is, me and 4 of my father's eldest sister's children, 2 of Asiya Athe's children, 4 of Nori Atha's. We used to jump up and down on Aji's slender but strong thighs. We used to empty Aji's pockets, take what we wanted, and stuff the rest back. 1 or 2 of us hovered around Aja too. Aja's white beard was scraggy and looked very funny. He used to pound the snuff to a fine powder and send a pinch of it to Aji. She would sniff it into her nose and comment either that the lime was not enough or that it needed more butter or more powdering. An evening like that. I had emptied Aji's pocket and, under the pretext of putting everything back, grabbed a 10 pays coin by sleight of hand and was lying on her lap acting innocent. Aji had a soft spot for me because I was her son's daughter and came to visit rarely. That day, Ami could not stand still or sit in one place. She kept going in and coming out like a cat whose tail was on fire. Tomorrow is her birthday. She pointed towards me and addressed Aji. Is it? How old will my dear be? She will turn 8 tomorrow and begin her 9th year. Aha, my darling. Aji hugged me and it rained kisses. If this snuff smell was not there, Ami said anxiously, she does not have new clothes for tomorrow. So far. He also has not come. My mother must have felt like the sky had fallen on her. He will come, don't worry. Does he live close by? He has to travel by bus for 5 hours, then take some other vehicle or walk the rest of these 10 miles. Aji had a lot of sympathy for the difficulties her son faced, working in a government job. Dusk began to spread. My eldest Aith lit a brass lamp that had been polished till it shimmered, and brought it to the drawing room. It's okay if he can't come, but if he had sent her a frock, that would have been nice. Aji smiled slightly. Is it okay if he doesn't come as long as he sends a dress? The problem is about 1 frock? Leave it, we will get one stitched. Ami calmed down and hurried inside. Looking at the way Aji sniffed a pinch of tobacco and wiped her nose, I immediately got out of her lap. She laughed at my cleverness and saying, "Come here," she held my hand and led me to the large bed standing in a corner of the drawing room. There was not enough light there. She bent down and pulled out an old trunk from under it. All the children came running into the room, even Asya Ate, Ammi too. Nuriatha came holding the brass lamp. The trunk was full of Susi fabric and mul davanis, Aja's jubba. When she was bringing out these things one by one, a dry date caught the naughty Ghani's eye, and he jumped for it. All the children screamed, "Hoo!" He quickly shoved it in his mouth and started dancing. I had had a better chance to grab it because I was sitting right next to Aji. Ami contorted her face, wrinkled her nose, and tried to scold me for my laziness with her eyes. I turned my attention to the trunk again. A spinning top became Hamid's. Aji was laughing softly when all the children screamed, each time one. One thing kept disappearing. This way, as ribbons, glittery decorations, and mehendi packets got emptied, Aji opened a small bundle wrapped in red cloth that lay at the bottom of the trunk. Seeing a small piece of white ashkan cloth, Ami turned her face again. Aji did not notice any of this. She put all the things back. Inside the trunk, carried me on her waist and came to the main door. My long legs dangled till Aji's ankles, but still I wrapped myself tightly around her waist. All the children had come down to the street with us. I was feeling very happy. Our procession continued. Once we crossed the street and went past the school, I saw Abidjan. Holding a bag in his left hand, dusty black boots on his feet, he was walking towards us. Aji saw him and stopped. I jumped down from Aji's waist and ran into Abidjan's arms. I told him before he asked, "Abidjan, Dadama is getting a frock stitched for me. We are going to Jafar Baba," I said happily. "There is no need to get it stitched now. I have brought a nice frock. You can wear that." "No, I want the frock Dadima gets stitched," I insisted. Aji laughed and said, "You have come walking just now. You go on home. I will come in a little while." The herd behind Aji had grown bigger. Children from the street had joined us. An old machine was screeching pathetically on the jagali in front of Jafar Baba's house. There was a frog figurine on top of the machine stand, and it looked strange under the lantern, as if the frog was about to leap down. We all gathered around the machine. Even when Aji got up on the jagali platform, Jafar Baba did not stop pedaling. He did not even ask what she wanted. Instead, he kept operating the machine and began to make loud, scary sounds from his throat. By then, Ghani and a few others also stood on the pedal, attempting to move it, and in the end it became too heavy and the pedal stopped. Jafar Baba slowly lifted his neck, looked at Aji and asked, "Do you know, Jamal B, why this whole world, the sun, the moon, the sky and stars have been created?" Aji took out the piece of cloth from her waist, but did not talk. For whom were all these created? For whom? Jafar Baba asked himself, mumbling. He pushed up his glasses, which had slipped to the end of his nose, and asked, "Are you not ready to leave?" Aji laughed softly. "Jafar Baba, you are my sibling. The very guru who blessed you has also shown me the way. When the call comes, no one will remain. Philosophy is not your exclusive property," she said. No, you have lost. You do not seek release. You have hidden the bird in the cage," Jafar Baba said. Aji's forehead crinkled. "Has our guru given you some kind of authority or what? There are a few who are too weak to fly, even if all the doors to the cage are open. There are also those who find a way through the darkness of ignorance. But the heart has to be pure. Haven't you listened to the guru's words?" Jafar Baba did not say anything for a couple of seconds. He sat still, staring into the void. Aji went near the sewing machine. She placed the cloth on top and ordered, "Stitch a nice dress for this darling of mine," carried me on her waist and walked out. I looked back. Jafar Baba sat unmoving. I leaned towards her and asked, "Aji, what did that mean?" We were near Qasim Bai's house. She was sitting on a mat on the jagali and stuffing tobacco into a biddy roll. I sneezed because of the smell of the leaves. Aji put me down and sat there. "Qasim B, where is this tobacco from?" "I don't know where it is from, but it is very nice," she replied. She took out 2 biddies from the packet, examined them, folded there, ends using a bamboo stick as thick as a pencil, gave one to Aji, put the other in her mouth, lit it with the lamp kept nearby, blew out smoke, and handed it over to Aji. She lit her biddy with Qasim B's, gave his back, and slowly blew out smoke. I was surprised, shocked, my beloved Aji, who thinks deeply about spiritual matters, now biddy, smoking. "Aji," I clapped my hands and shouted, "Ah ha ha ha! Women are smoking bidis. I will tell Abbajan. Kasim B immediately pressed the bidi to the floor, and when the light died, threw it out and grumbled, "Bad children, bad children." When Aji nonchalantly took another 2 puffs and sat on calmly, I remembered the way she had made Jafar Baba shut up. "Dadima, what does it mean?" I asked. "You will not understand it, my dear. But still, I will tell you. Our hearts should always be pure." I did not understand this grandmother. I began to feel bored. "Dadima, let's go home." Let's go," she said. I climbed onto her waist again. When we got home, the fragrance of fish curry hit our senses. Aja and Abbajan were sitting in the drawing room. Aja was asking, "What do you say? Have Sheikh Abdullah and Nehru become friends now or not?" Abbajan used to spread the newspaper around and read every day, and he began to report in detail. I tugged at Aji's seragu. Yawning widely, I said, "I am going to sleep. I am sleepy." "No, my little one, wait a minute." Aji went inside and brought a plate of rice and fish curry. "No!" "I don't want no, I won't eat." I closed my mouth with both hands. "Look here, this is Mali fish, just little bites. It is small, isn't it? If you don't eat this, you will grow up like your mother." "Like Ummi?" "Thu! No." "Why are you saying no?" "She is so beautiful. She loves you so much." "Not at all. If I don't eat dinner, she threatens that Hitler will come and take me away, and then, Dadima, I like bread a lot, isn't it? If I am eating bread, she says that it is made of mucus, you see. I feel like puking." She cuts my nails very short. "Ami is bad," I complained. Abbajan stopped talking to Aja and paid attention to what I was saying. Aji laughed wholeheartedly. "Did you see? Your wife gives my darling a lot of trouble, it seems." Abbajan looked troubled. "Didn't I tell you before? To not get such a young girl married off? Did you all listen to me?" He scolded Aji. "No one asked about my pain. When Sophia got measles 2 years ago, her eyes had veiled over. She could not breathe, and it seemed like she would not live. I made her lie down on my lap. Your daughter-in-law was relaxed about all this. I was very distressed looking at the child's condition. None of you lived close by. My tears overflowed from helplessness. Your daughter-in-law saw that and laughed so much. I don't know how I controlled myself. Once the child recovered, I asked her one day why she had laughed so much. She said she couldn't control her laughter seeing a grown man like me crying." He complained. "What do you say? When she got married to me, she must have been 11 years old. When Sophia was born, she had turned 12, isn't it? But still, now it is okay. She has matured a little bit," he continued, softening, and added, "But still, Amma, girls should not be married off at such a young age." Aji took me into her lap with great love, remembered the measles attack I had had 2 years before, and said, "That is why the child is so weak. Yet how else can it be if she does not eat properly either? You are my dear one. Open your mouth. No, don't clamp your teeth, just one mouthful. Look here, once I was cleaning a Mali fish when the Shanbog's daughter-in-law came in. She was pregnant. She stood there and looked at me. 'What is this, Boobama?' she asked. I replied, 'See, my dear, this is such and such fish. What will you make with it?' 'I will make curry, dear,' I said. She stood there talking till I made the curry. When the curry came to a boil, its fragrance began to spread all around. She began to desire it too. She did not say anything. 'Here, open your mouth. Don't bite your teeth down.' Another mouthful. And then she began to get labor pain. Why did she get pain, Dadima? Does one get pain after eating fish curry?" Aji laughed again. "Pain comes for some reason. You just say, ha." Another mouthful now. She got pain, but she did not deliver. She ate pain for 3 days. "Can one eat pain, Dadima?" Aji stopped talking and stared at me for a minute. As if she was addressing someone else, she said, "Correct, isn't it? One should eat pain and give happiness." "What happened then, Dadima?" I asked, pulling her back into the story. And then everyone gathered. In those days, there were no doctors, or such others, after all. They asked her to tell what was in her heart. What did she want to eat? What did she want to wear? They asked. After a lot of persuasion, she finally opened her mouth. She said that she wanted to eat Mali fish curry from Boobama's house. The people gathered there almost died in horror. After that, I got to know about this and went to her house. That is all. Why get worried about it? I came back home. A load of rice straw was lying there. I chopped them to finger, length-size, took a handful of the sticks to their house, and told them what all spices were needed for the fish curry masala. The Shanbhog's wife did exactly as I told her. The curry began to boil, the fragrance hit the senses. That girl drank a bit of curry. She sucked on a few rice straw sticks. She gave birth. A beautiful girl child like you was born. With some food still left in my mouth, I had slipped deep into a dream. In the morning, I was still asleep, and it was only when Ami poked my ribs a couple of times that I woke up. Sun rays had seeped through the roof tiles into that small room. Delicate dust particles floated in rainbow colors inside the sphere of that light. I stretched my hand. Amijan was shouting at me anxiously. "Get up quickly! I will give you a bath. Look, what a beautiful frock this is." The frock was covered with rose frills. I had never worn something like that before. Just as Amijan was happily smiling and holding it up to see, I don't know what I was feeling, but in one leap, I was near the door. "I will not wear this," I said. "Why?" Amijan was surprised, angry. "Why? Because I will wear what Aji got stitched for me." "That white bit? Who knows if even a stitch or two has fallen on that piece? Go to the bathroom now, or else," she scolded in a low voice so that Aji would not hear. Just as Amijan was keeping one step in front of, the other, carefully so as not to wake up Abbajan, I jumped out. The pot of milk in Aji's hands tilted but did not fall. I disappeared into the folds of Aji's sussy skirt, and Amijan's angry looks could not touch me. When Aji and I reached Jafar Baba's house, he was washing his face. He was seated on the jagali, 3 large shimmering brass pots of steaming hot water in front of him, charcoal powder in his left hand, a meswak stick in his right. Upon seeing us, he vigorously brushed his teeth, retched and spat out, brought up loud, strange sounds from his throat, and exhibited all of his quirks. He splashed water on his face, scrubbed his face, and then his legs with the towel on his shoulders, and sat down on a stool next to the sewing machine. His daughter placed a tall tumbler of dark black coffee in his hands. She brought me and Aji the same coffee in small porcelain cups. Aji had not yet had it. I had never had such coffee before. In fact, I was not supposed to drink coffee or tea. Amijan would chase after me with a glass of Ovaltine. I would make her run all around the house, and in the end would sometimes drink it and sometimes pour it out of the window. If Amijan saw me drink this coffee now, even imagining it made me happy. I took a sip. My tongue singed. By the time I carefully finished drinking it, my body had warmed. It felt like I was going to sweat. My head felt strange. Jafar Baba took out a dozen or so pieces of the cloth Aji had given him the previous day. Just like Amijan had said, not a single stitch had fallen on the cloth. I leaned on the machine and stepped on the pedal. The machine began to run, taking the weight of my leg with it. Every piece began to join together. When I wore Jafar Baba's artwork, all my enthusiasm came crashing down. Stitched without any measurements, the frock stretched below my knees. The folds that were supposed to sit at the waist sagged pathetically. Shoulder, arms, neck, none of these were where they were supposed to be, and like footpaths in villages, went here and there haphazardly. But I liked the pocket Jafar Baba had stitched on the right side. I knew that this would irritate Amijan very much. When I returned home wearing the frock, Abbajan merely laughed. Asiya and Nori Aithe giggled, as if I was a cartoon. I won't even go into Amijan's reaction. My desire was fulfilled. After lunch, after making sure that Amijan was asleep, I sat on the jagali for a long time. After a while, I noticed that my companions were all screaming together and running around. I jumped down from my perch, too. Everyone had gathered in the backyard of Rehman Chikapa's house. Some had climbed on top of the hay pile, while others had climbed the guava tree. Although 50-60 children had gathered there, the yard fell silent. When I pushed the thorny partition aside and went in, everyone turned to look, but no one said a word. It became clear that Abid, holding a thin, tall pole, was issuing orders. I hesitantly walked ahead. My eyes turned involuntarily towards Abid. As if he was expecting that, he gestured that I was to climb the guava tree. Seeing all this secrecy, my curiosity was stirred too. When I got to the tree, all my efforts to climb up were in vain. Even when I stood on tiptoe and stretched, I couldn't reach the dozen hands that dropped down from above. Abid put the pole aside carefully, and came near. He was a tall, brown boy, about 15, 16 years old. All of a sudden, he grabbed my waist, lifted me up, and sat me on the nearest branch. Some giggled. He approached the haystack slowly, taking careful steps. A few sparrows flew up. As I sat there watching, Abid held a winnow in his left hand and propped it up with a tall pole in his right. He took a fistful of finger millets from a bag inside his pocket and spread them below the winnow. He stood near the other end of the staff. Nothing happened for a few minutes. It was so still it felt like everyone had stopped breathing. After a while, a sparrow came to peck at the seeds, then soon another and yet another, until some 5, 6 sparrows with their small beaks, with their brown and gray feathers standing up, had bent their heads and were pecking at the seeds. The heartbeats of all the children must have stopped, and perhaps mine too. Just then, in a blink, Abid pulled his end of the staff. The winnow fell face down. The children screamed, "Ho, ho, ho," and giddily fell out of the tree. They all surrounded the winnow and continued to shout, but no one dared touch it. They moved aside when Abid got close and sat around the winnow on their knees. Everyone was restless. He held the winnow tightly in his left hand, made a small opening to one side, put his fist in, and searched around. He searched around again, and yet again. Something should have been there for him to find. He lifted the winnow up slowly. One sparrow, which must have hidden somewhere, flew out. Some were disappointed, some confused, but still all of them hooted for more. Abid commanded in a loud voice, "All of you climb up." We went back to our places without a word. He set his trap again. The sparrows had cleverly flown away the first time. He continued his task, the children feeling a mix of enthusiasm and disappointment. I started feeling sad at the cruelty of the game. Abid continued to be deeply engrossed in designing the trap and running to a distance. His face began to redden under the sun. Beads of sweat formed lines on his forehead. Ghani, sitting on a branch above me, deliberately swung his legs, trying to put them on my shoulders, but in the end dashed them against my cheeks, my ears. I was fed up. Just as I was about to get down from the tree, I realized I couldn't do it by myself, and just as I was about to call Abid, the winnow fell over once more. Abid ran ahead, searched inside the winnow, and brought out a fat, cute sparrow. He held it tightly in his large hand, squeezing it and showing only its head. Everyone's excitement overflowed. It would be right to say that they all flew out of the tree and the haystack. As they were all hooting wildly, I tried to get down too, and fell. My knees hurt a lot. My elbows were bruised. A cut on my forehead started bleeding. Naturally, everyone surrounded me. Finding no other way to stop the bleeding, Abid took a fistful of mud, sieved it through his fingers to separate out the stones, and applied soft clay to the wound. The unexpected incident hurt and embarrassed me, and I started crying. Since I was not trying to control my tears, the crying soon turned into intense sobs. "You only fell," many of them said, trying to avoid taking responsibility. Abid, however, held my hand and led me to a rock. He wiped my tears and consoled me. "Look here, don't cry. I will show you a funny thing. This is a female sparrow, so there are eggs inside its stomach. I will give them to you, you can take them home and hatch them," he said. His suggestion sounded very attractive to me. My sobbing reduced, and gradually the tears stopped altogether. Abid held the sparrow in front of me, while Ghani held the sparrow's head, and Abid took out a small knife from his pocket and cut its throat. Blood oozed out. Unable to watch, my eyes closed automatically. Abid let the blood flow and placed the sparrow on a small piece of roof tile. Then he slowly pierced open its chest and laid bare its insides. What was inside? An esophagus mixed with blood, the intestine wrapped spirally around it. A little heart that was still beating. Although I did not like it, it was an incredible sight. I had never seen the world that was now opening before my eyes. Abid cut out the part of the intestine that looked swollen and told me, "Here, put out your hand." I stretched my right hand out, feeling a mix of fear, surprise, desire, curiosity, and incredulity. Abid placed tiny eggs in my hand. They were warm. There were brown dots here and there on the white and ash colored eggs. I felt as if I had the most precious wonder of the world. Just as my hand remained outstretched, several other hands came forward saying, let me see," and I quickly closed my fist. But they did not let me be. Several small hands began to pull my hand down. I closed my fist tighter and held it close to my chest. The eggs broke in this struggle. I did not notice at first. When my hands felt sticky, and I saw the runny eggs falling on my frock in strings, I screamed. Seeing me weep, Abid realized what had happened. Just then, Raymond Shikuppa's wife Zubaydah came to the yard, took in all the drama, and scolded Abid with whatever curses came to her mouth. When the children realized it was no longer wise to remain there, they began to slip away quietly. Abid whispered, "Let's go to the pond." Everyone began to run in that direction. Only I limped slowly, wiping my hand on my frock. By the time I reached the pond, most of the boys had already jumped in and were splashing water on each other and swimming. The girls were sitting on the edge of the pond on rocks placed there for filling water, washing clothes and vessels, their legs. I inched into the water very hesitantly and sat on a rock. The water came up to my waist. The water, warmed under the sun, looked pretty to me. I wondered what Amijan, who used to flare up in rage if I stood 1 or 2 minutes longer than necessary by the public tap, would say if she saw me now. The thought made me laugh, even in the sorry state I was in. I washed my sticky hands. The moment I remembered Amijan, my heart began to shiver. I had to go home, with this injured knee, a cut-open forehead, dirty frock. Abba! There was nothing for it now. I was thinking all this when I felt someone tug at my legs. Abid swam like a fish next to the rock and brushed against them again. By the time I thought to lift my feet up and squat on the rock, he brushed past once more, this time coming near and suddenly lifting me off the rock. I shouted, "Let me go, let me go!" But he carried me to the shore and, with everyone looking on, kissed me on my cheek, deposited me on a rock, and disappeared into the water as suddenly as he had come. The girls on the bank screamed, "Thoo, thoo, thoo!" Asiya Athi's daughter said, "I will tell your Ammi." I shrank in shyness, but a strong protective voice was beating inside me, saying that I had not done anything wrong. Seeing no other way, I sat on a rock on the bank of the pond, covered my face with my hands, and began to weep. I kept crying. A strange fear gripped me. I did not realize the time and did not know how long I sat there. I lifted my head up when I felt the touch of a warm hand. Aji! All my pain, anxiety, and fear disappeared with her touch. She hugged me to her chest and washed away my snot, and the mud stuck to my forehead. She wiped my face gently with her seragu and lifted me to her waist. The girls playing around did not have the guts to say anything to Aji. She carried me and started walking. My heart felt very heavy. My tears were eager to burst forth. "Dadima," I said in a deadened voice. "What is it, my love?" In a tone full of maternal affection. And then, I stuttered. "Tell me, my dear." Aji's affection brought me some courage. And then, that bad Abid, he kissed me. "Here," I said, pointing to my cheek. A very brief smile flitted across Aji's face. I gave her more details. "I did not do anything. Dadima, he only behaved like the shaitan." The moment I started to explain, a flood of tears, who knows where from, rushed in and engulfed me. Aji did not say anything. She hugged me tighter and with more affection to her chest and kissed my forehead. She soothed my back, cracked her knuckles, and walked hurriedly towards the village, carrying me tightly. I wonder what she felt looking at my dull face, for she lamented, "My child has withered so much on her birthday." She pushed open the gate to the backyard, went in, and put me down. Attempting to cheer me up, she picked up a rusted sickle from the base of a distant tree. She walked a little further away and began to dig the ground with the sickle. The ground was hard. She gathered her strength, dug harder, and soon the soil loosened and a hole began to form. I looked on. After some more digging, I was astonished to see a bunch of groundnuts suddenly hanging from Aji's hand. My surprise was endless. Aji began to look like a Gandharva who could magically detect things underground. I clapped my hands and danced and laughed joyfully. Does groundnut really grow underground? I hid some of them in my frock. "Dadima, some more. I want some more," I said. Wherever I pointed my finger, wherever I looked, wherever Aji moved her hands, there were peanuts. My frock filled up. I forgot all the shame I had felt because of Abid. Aji engulfed me in her sari and protected me from Amijan's wrath. That night I got a high fever, and the next day Abbajan took me and Amijan and left the village. It took many days for my injured knees to heal, but that day remained special because of all the first experiences I had. Abid. That naughty, uncivilized boy from Malinahali was, today, the supervisor of the dargah under our family's management, a historically important place, famous among people as a spiritual center. He was the guru there. I was waiting for him. Would he be as rough as he was as a boy? Would he have acquired a holy glow? Or would he have a deceitful look on his face? I began to feel a new enthusiasm. I had a lot of faith in my ability to gauge the value of people just by looking at them. This was an opportunity to test my skill. He arrived. A checkered panch, a full-sleeved white jabba reaching his knees, 2, 3 silver rings with different colored stones, a green rumal on his head, sporting a beard and a mustache. I did not know what to make of him at first. The scent from his attar was intense and overbearing and spread throughout the room. "Do you remember, Abid?" I don't know if the question in my heart reached him or not. He bent down and said, "Assalamu alaikum, Appa." "Appa!" I wanted to laugh. So much propriety in just one word. But then I, too, was displaying so much cultured behavior. I replied and asked him to take a seat. He sat down. His eyes had been on the floor from the moment he entered the house. He continued to look down and said, "Appa, we have decided to hold the annual Syed Shah Mir Ali Ganda Mahotsava festival on the 15th of next month. You must come." He recited the lines like a good student who had learned a poem by heart and was now repeating it with his eyes closed. His eyes remained on the floor. I did not answer him for a long time. I thought he might look towards me, at least in anticipation of my reply. I would have caught him then, immediately, whether the naughtiness of his boyhood still remained housed in him or not. But no, he did not meet my eyes, and carefully escaped all evaluation. Some people are like this. They turn everything upside down. A taste of heaven. Shamim Banu's family found it very difficult to understand her. Sadat wondered what had made her change. An Urdu language teacher in a government secondary school, he spent all his free time analyzing her behavior. He sometimes thought that perhaps a jinn had stepped on her. Although he was not in the habit of reading, his eyes had by chance fallen on an article in a newspaper lying in the staff room, and it seemed his attempts to solve his problem were bearing fruit at last. He decided all by himself that his wife was going through menopause and that she needed his help during this time. His conclusion brought him a little relief. He learned to ignore her outbursts at home, the way she lost her temper for small things and screamed at the children. He had wanted a simple explanation for her behavior. This was an easy road to walk. The eldest of their children was Azim. Perhaps it was because he was the oldest, or maybe it was because he was the son, but Shamim Banu had a special love for him. Sat kun maaf, like they say she would have forgiven him 7 murders. It had become an everyday occurrence for Asima and Sana, his 2 younger sisters, to complain. "Ami is doing partiality?" She was open about it as well. But when she got angry, and this happened often, she would weigh all 3 of them on the same scale, brand them all as Shaitan's group, thrash whoever she could catch hold of, and so cool her anger down. Azim, however, was rarely caught. Although Sana was the youngest, she was also the smartest, and was able to gauge her mother's mood and vanish. Whether she was at fault or not, it was Asima who was invariably thrashed, though she was for an odd reason willing to bear the brunt of her mother's anger. When that anger was spent, Shamim would be filled with remorse and begin to feel immense love for the girl who suffered the worst of her bad temper. She would then buy Asima a new dress, a new pair of chappals, maybe give her some extra pocket money or some sweet dish, in an attempt to fulfill any remaining wants her daughter had. Their father's extraordinary patience with their mother surprised the children, and they decided that she controlled him fully. They took what Sadat and his sisters had to say about their mother and came to their own conclusions about why her behavior had changed, and consoled and commiserated with each other. Shamim had come into that house of 3 sons and 3 daughters as the eldest daughter, in-law, with the sky of limitless expectations in her eyes. When she dipped her henna'd palms in sandalwood paste and made an imprint on the western wall of the house, she was surprised to see small hands make imprints next to hers. She turned round to see her sisters-in-law, brothers-in-law, their expenses, food, clothing, a mother-in-law who was always sick and the prescribed diet she had to be cooked, her father-in-law's countless relatives and friends. Her own dreams withered away. She initially managed everything with a smile on her face, as they say. But as days passed by, her own pregnancies and having to raise her little children in the middle of all the other weddings, pregnancies, deliveries, and confinements of her husband's sisters, illnesses, and eventual deaths of her parents-in-law brought her much irritation. Even then, she had never lost her temper. A thread of hope spooled in her mind that her responsibilities would reduce at least a little once her CO sisters came. But what happened was the opposite. After the first brother-in-law's wife merrily left for Dubai with her husband within just a year of their wedding, Shamim's disappointment knew no bounds. When would she, her husband, and their children ever be free from endless chores? Maybe after she died. So she began to hiss, unbashful, paying no heed to who heard her. Sadat's younger sisters and the rest of the family kept their distance. She looked after her youngest brother-in-law, Arif, orphaned after his parents' death, with much love. But after he got married, she became like a stepmother overnight. To Sadat's surprise, she told Arif and his new wife to live separately. Sadat was anguished. But would she let it go? When she raked up every issue, old and new, blamed Sadat wholeheartedly, cried and screamed and made a fuss and then banged the door to her room shut, Arif and his wife became very distressed. Poor Arif. He didn't ask why he had to leave, when it was his father's house and she could go if she wanted to. In the end, we don't know what Arif and Sadat decided between themselves. Arif swallowed the embarrassment and insult he had endured in front of his wife, and within 3 days left the house, renting in the second cross of the same mohalla. The Arif incident affected each member of that house differently. The 3 children discussed their mother's behavior in whispers. They liked Arif Chikapa a lot. Sana blurted out the mischievous thought in her head. Now, after you get married, you will also have to pack your bags like this with your wife. Azim felt a mix of distress and fear and did not react. He stared at her for a long time until Asima came to his rescue. Sabithu, may no one see such a terrible day, she said, displaying wisdom far beyond her years. Azim broke his silence and continued to whisper with them. Their paternal aunts used to explain away such things, saying, "Poor Bhabhi. When she has high blood pressure, she behaves like this at times, but she is good at heart." The children followed the same line of thought, saying, "Poor Ammi, she is good." They completed the sentence, certified her heart, saw no other way but to forgive her and make up. Though they were ashamed to see Arif Chikapa's face, they went to his house when he invited them to the milk, boiling, over ritual. Shamim Banu did not attend. Without offering a reason, she had stopped talking to Arif and his wife, and then, many days later, as casually as if nothing had happened, managed to build a good relationship once more. Sadat, however, was deeply hurt by all this. He blamed himself 101 times, accusing himself of uselessness. He rebuked himself for clinging to the excuse of her menopause and letting go of all relationships and kindness because of it. He called himself a coward for so justifying his helplessness. He suffered a great deal of shame, thinking his stature had shrunk before Arif and his wife, and saw himself unfit in his role as elder brother. In the face of his acute sorrow, he became stubborn about getting back his power and status, and decided that, as before, he would make his wife obey his, every command. But then he deliberately gave up every chance he had to follow through on his decision, and felt even sorrier for himself. By the time he understood the impossibility of tolerating her behavior, he began to realize that some fear was stopping him from confronting her. He could not, however, identify what he was afraid of, and after his attempt at analysis failed, he built a wall of depression around himself. The day he broke those walls himself was the day he would be free of this torture. The sunshine in his life lost its warmth. He started to collapse internally. One evening, he was about to leave for evening namaz and was looking for his cap. Usually it was kept where he could see it, but that day it must have fallen. He was getting impatient. The azan from the masjid was about to end. He could just manage to offer namaz with the jamaat if he wore the cap and ran to the mosque. But the cap! Where is my cap? He called out loudly, as if asking himself, who was there to answer him? He still expected an answer. He would have been relieved if Shamim came out to scold him and throw his cap at him too. For all the other prayers, there was a half-hour after the call to prayer ended for people to gather and offer namaz. But there was no such time at evening prayers. People would gather quickly right after the azan ended. If he couldn't even get a chance to pray during the holy evening hour, then he was highly agitated. Shamim was sitting in front of him, her legs stretched out, immersed in something on TV. "Will you switch that damn TV off?" Can't you at least turn down the volume when the azan is going on? He said. Allah has created a special hell for you, was the thought that came to the tip of his tongue. Though he managed to stop himself from saying it, she neither turned to him nor cared. She had looked at him sympathetically during his hunt for the cap and then turned her attention back to the TV. He wanted to lash out at her, slap her, but it was impossible. Why couldn't he do it? He was withering before some invisible fear. He was sweating profusely and about to collapse. Just as he was looking around, hoping there was at least a chair to catch him if he fainted, his invisible fear slowly came before his eyes, with a remarkable glow on her face despite her bent back, wrinkled skin, withered hands and legs, and uncombed matted hair. An elderly figure with the saragoo of her white sari covering her head stepped slowly into the angry room on that dusky evening and stretched out her hand to give him his cap. He looked defeated. Yes, for her he tolerated all the torture Shamim Banu made it out. Oh Allah, what a test you are giving me. Isn't this your cap? Take it and go offer namaz quickly. I have to go say my prayers too. She held out the old cap in her right hand. On her left was a ja namaz as ancient as her. Ayo, Amaji, why did you take the trouble? I would have looked for it myself, Sadat remarked, and came closer to take the old cap, faded from white to dull yellow, before putting it on. She lovingly kept a hand on his head, uttered some blessings, and walked slowly back to her room. Sadat ran to the mosque. He used to call her Amaji a long time ago, but as his children began to grow older, they took to calling her Bidadi. Wonder who taught them to say that. And then everyone began to call her Bidadi, Sadat included. She was his auntie, his father's younger sister, who had been married off as a child. Her husband died just a month after their wedding. Someone said he had died of a snake bite, but she never found out for sure. A year after his death, she got her first period, and while there were no official restrictions in her maternal home, the family did not have a tradition of remarriage. Her body shed its layers every month and became one with the earth. Her body, her mind, her dreams, none were fulfilled. She remained an eternal virgin. She lived like a shadow and gave shade to her elder brother's family. She managed the illness of her sister, in-law, that is, Sadat's mother, cleaning her urine and feces without complaint. There were times Sadat wondered whether Bidadi had been born to manage his mother's illness, or whether his mother saw her and then fell sick. She finished everything his mother asked her to do, and then continued to work, constantly looking for another chore. She never once looked at the pile of used dishes with disdain. She merely bent down her head and washed them. He couldn't remember a single day when that house had been empty and locked. She herself became the lock. She opened the door for him, no matter what time he knocked. When she was given a set of new clothes for Ramzan, she folded them neatly and put them away in her iron trunk. She kept the janamaz and the namaz chador she was given at her wedding folded on top of that trunk. Every now and then, a few jasmine flowers would blossom within the chador's folds. She was also a skilled hand at killing insects and little creatures without mercy, and for this reason was a savior among women and children and beloved by many. If someone shouted Bidadi loudly, that was enough, and within an instant she would present herself, broom in hand. This way, while killing little worms and insects, one day she left her broom to one side, picked up a split log of wood, and killed a snake. Several men were afraid, looking at the dead snake with blood splattered all around it, even as people were identifying the dead snake, some calling it a cobra, others saying it was a viper. She thrashed it some more, angrily shouting, "Why do these snakes have to bite? What is this job of killing men?" Some bystanders insisted that her eyes were full of tears as she spoke. Shamim Banu had learned her domestic skills under the supervision of Bidadi and had paid her immense respect at first. But as time passed, Shamim began to speak to her with disregard. Sadat's fear had started from there. Would Shamim chase away Bidadi, who had given her life to them, like she did cruelly with Arif? If she did throw her out, where would she chase her to? It was at least okay for Arif. He had a job, a wife. Who did Bidadi have except Sadat? If Shamim behaved like that, even thinking about it made him shiver. Although he consoled himself, saying, "It is all Allah's mercy," peace of mind had fled far away. One day, Azim shouted to his sister from outside, "Hey, Sana. Sana, where are you?" Coming. What do you want?" "It's okay. I don't really need you, just bring me a piece of old cloth. I want to clean my bike. 1 minute, she said, dashed inside for an old cloth, and gave it to him before vanishing. Azim was unsure about the cloth he was holding, but since he was in a hurry and too lazy to tire out his mind by thinking, he quickly wiped his bike and left, throwing the cloth near the door. When he returned in the afternoon, it did not take him long to realize that he was directly responsible for the great disaster that had transpired. Bidadi and his mother were standing in the front yard. Bidadi, who never cried, was crying so much that her eyes were about to fall out. The old cloth he had thrown down was in her hands, and she was trying her best, with her feeble hands, to wipe away the grease stains. A distressed Shamim Banu stood near her, holding a new silk mat and trying to console her. Here, this is a new janamaz. Please take this, Bidadi. Bidadi wiped her eyes some more and burst into tears again. No, I don't want this. Why does a dying woman need this? Say bitu. May it be your enemies who die. This is not just any janamaz. When my elder sister went to Hajj, she brought this for me. There she sprinkled the holy Zamzam water on it too. I beg you, please take it. Please offer namaz on this. Azim realized his mistake. He felt like he had been caught red-handed with stolen goods. The oil marks on the janamaz were telling all the stories. He came between them, saying, Ammi, and tried to speak. He got flustered under her sharp stare and became quiet. When he looked for Sana, he felt that, like always, she had anticipated disaster and vanished. Asima was staring at him, indicating that she was willing to be the sacrificial lamb, and this confused Azim even further. Didn't I say I don't want this? If your sister got this for you, then keep it yourself. Why are you giving it to me? My namaz is enough for me. Shamim Banu seemed to have acquired extraordinary and surprising patience all of a sudden. What does it matter if you offer the namaz or I do? I don't know who did this. Maybe the children did this unknowingly. It is very old, after all. Is it? Is it too old? I am also very old, isn't it? Bidadi stubbornly began to pick a fight. She had never before fought with anyone. In that full house, when relatives visited, she would butcher 3 chickens, faithfully clean them herself, and cook the meat into a fragrant saru. And even when she didn't get a single piece of meat, she never fought about it. When she made a big vessel of payasa and didn't get a teaspoon of it to taste, she did not feel sad. During weddings, when there were countless Zaratari silk saris on display, she never desired one. Seeing her shed copious tears over a threadbare namaz shocked Shamim Banu. No, Bidadi, please don't cry. Azim did not realize that it was your janamaz. He is not a bad boy. Please forgive him. Take this janamaz. The more she begged, the more Bidadi's grief increased. Shamim Banu's patience snapped. Che! What a headache this is. Damned namaz. For the sake of an old namaz, you are being as stubborn as a child. Are you out of your mind? Just as she was shouting at Bidadi, Sadat came in through the front door, and at the sight of the scene before him, his hands and feet went cold. He thought he was witnessing what he had feared for so long. Before he could fully understand what was happening, Bidadi went pale and collapsed on the floor. The frail namaz fell from her hands. Sadat immediately hugged her to his chest, not knowing what words to use to console her. Azim brought a glass of water. After taking a sip or two, she stared up at Sadat intensely and asked, as if to prove a point, You know which janamaz it is, don't you? To be honest, he did not know. His parents got married 10 years after Bidadi returned to her maternal home. He was his parents' 6th son. How was he to know these wedding things? But he merely nodded his head. My father had it brought from Gujarat for my wedding. When I went to my mother in Law's place, the first namaz I prayed was on this janamaz, and then, she paused a little and continued. I had spread out my janamaz next to the window in my room for the evening prayers, when someone threw a handful of jasmine blossoms on my mat from outside. I got scared. Back then we had only chimney oil lamps. When I looked out in bewilderment, he was standing there, laughing. She was floating away to some other world, as if she did not have any connection with the present. Her marital secrets. Oh, God. Sadat had a lump in his throat. He did not say anything. Although warning bells were ringing in a corner of his heart saying, No, he ignored them and looked accusingly at his wife. She remained still, as if she hadn't noticed or seen any of this from the corner of her eye. The whole family stood still like idols, each lost in their own thoughts, feeling accused in the court of conscience. Nobody had thought that an unexpected incident could upset the whole family to this extent. Everyone was in the middle of justifying their actions to themselves. Who could say that it was wrong for Bidadi to have delicately washed her old jah namaz and hung it on a wire to dry carefully so that the smell of jasmine did not fade? Responding to Azim's urgent call, Sana's decision that the hanging cloth was an old one and could be handed over to clean the bike was not wrong either. That was how the piece of cloth looked. Azim, poor fellow, was not at fault. Fearful of what curse the old woman might heap on her innocent children for desecrating the jah namaz she had been praying on for decades, the protective mother in Shamim Banu had lost her temper. So, unable to assign blame, everyone remained upset about what happened. Sadat, however, did not bother with any of these details and imagined what he wanted about his wife. His worry that his fear was coming true was followed by anxiety over Bidadi's future life. He had managed to console her a little and walked her slowly to her room. He held on to her hand for a long time, even after she had lain down on her bed. Not knowing what to do with the jah namaz, Shamim Banu washed the mat some more to try to remove all its stains, hung it on a wire to dry, and walked inside. There was no indication that the jah namaz incident would be solved easily anytime soon. Instead, it began to take a strange turn. Bidadi's entire daily routine changed. She did not again touch the jah namaz that was drying on the wire outside. It remained there, letting itself catch the sun. For a few days, Bidadi did not offer namaz, though she had never before missed a prayer. When it was close to prayer time, Shamim left spare prayer mats where Bidadi could see them, but Bidadi didn't even glance in their direction. The always cheerful Bidadi began to cry constantly. There were no times, rhymes, or reasons, rules or regulations for her grief. Her spontaneous crying did not have any impact on the children, but it affected Shamim Banu and Sadat immensely. He had decided that his wife was the sole reason for Bidadi's sadness, and suffered all the more thinking there was nothing he could do to make it better. He became a slave to dangerous levels of silence, and began to pay more attention to Bidadi, determined to repair all mistakes. Shamim Banu got very irritated with Bidadi's tears. There were bound to be some highs and lows in a family. What was the need to make it a big deal, she wondered. Although she had given her a new jah namaz, Bidadi hadn't accepted it and was being stubborn. Shamim decided that her husband was furthering Bidadi's stubbornness and stopped talking to him. What did it matter which jah namaz it was? Offering namaz was the main thing. Shamim was boiling in frustration that the old woman had stopped doing that, and she felt sad and anxious about any curse she might have put on her son. She began to offer namaz at all the proper times, praying for her son's protection. Once the morning namaz was over, she recited the Surah Yasin, blew over half a cup of pure water, and began to make her son drink it. She looked for the poorest among their relatives and distributed rice, wheat, lentils, eggs, and new clothes. She had a black chicken brought in, circled it over Azim's head without his knowledge, and had it fly off the roof of their house to ward off the evil eye. Still unsatisfied, she fasted for 3 days and prayed for her son's welfare. Bidadi behaved as if none of this concerned her, and kept up her program of crying continuously. Who knows what all pain she was crying away? Denial built up over many years must have been frozen in her. Every now and then she let out a deep sigh, and was even beginning to address Allah directly. Allah, Allah, you must look after me, she would utter. Shamim Banu lost the last thread of her patience at this. No matter how hard the children tried, they couldn't extinguish Bidadi's sadness. Azim plotted with his sisters and took that jah namaz to the dry cleaners. All the stains were removed, but it became even more threadbare. He got scared and hung it back on the wire, not wanting anything more to do with it. This way, for about 15 or 20 days, Sadat's family was caught in a jah namaz whirlpool. Then one day, Asima placed a plate of food and a glass of water in front of Bidadi and stood there, urging her to eat. Bidadi remained lost in her own world. When Asima broke off a piece of dose and put it in the old woman's mouth, she not only spat it out, thu, but also cried again, Allah, Allah, you must look after me. Shamim Banu, who was busy in the kitchen, got irritated. She rushed in with Bidadi's trunk in one hand and dragged her to the door. Asima got between them and begged, Ammi, no, let her be. Shamim ignored her and called to an auto plying on the road, made Bidadi climb in with her trunk, placed some money in the auto driver's hand, and told him to drop her off at Arif's house before storming back in. The auto driver was familiar with the family. He took one look at Shamim's angry face and drove to Arif's. Even though she had passed off Bidadi to her brother-in-law, peace eluded Shamim. She began to snap at her children without reason. Asima willingly bore the brunt of her anger as always, but she did not get repentance gifts like she used to. Although the children were being punished more than ever before, they were also determined to do something about the situation. Whenever they had time, they went to Arif's house and tried to talk to Bidadi. They all decided that Bidadi was doing a little better there. They noticed that she was eating with Arif and offering namaz at all the designated times like before. After about 15 days, Azim sat Bidadi in an auto rickshaw and brought her home. Shamim Banu glared, but did not say a word. Azim spotted a brief look of peace on his mother's face and heaved a sigh of relief, thinking he was saved from her anger. He shifted Bidadi and her trunk into one of the inner rooms, but unfortunately her habits began to change again. After sitting for the morning namaz, she would remain sitting there till noon. She could no longer remember which namaz she was reading, which of the 5 prayers it was, or which surah she was reciting. Right after having food, she began to complain directly to Allah, saying, "Allah, Allah, they have not given me food. You have to look after me now." The problems started again. Azim decided that he had to find a solution, that doing nothing was no longer an option. Shamim Banu had gone out. Sadat, as usual, was out of the house too. Azim called his 2 sisters for a meeting. Sana, as usual, began to create mischief. What was a meeting without food? She blackmailed him, claiming she would attend the meeting only if he brought her pani puri from the vendor at the corner of the street, and if not, she would report this meeting in detail to their mother. Azim had to pause the meeting before it had even begun. Go out and come back with chicken kebabs and a bottle of Pepsi. Sana was happy. By the time Asima passed the plate kebabs to her siblings and was about to eat a piece, Bidadi came into the room. Azim jokingly said, "Oh-ho! How can we have a meeting without the president?" and shifted a little to make her sit next to him. Wondering whether to give Bidadi a piece of chicken, he looked up at Asima. Sana, noticing their wordless communication, gave a glass of the bubbly drink to Bidadi without any forewarning and encouraged her to drink it. Everyone looked on as Bidadi placed the glass to her lips and took a sip. She drank the whole glass in one long gulp. Running her tongue over her lips, she glanced at Azim's glass and asked, "What is that?" Before he could answer, Sana, smiling mischievously, said, "It has gone to her head already. That is Abi Kausar," and burst out laughing. The other 2 did not like her joke one bit. Bidadi's face beamed and she asked, "Abi Kausar, really? Isn't that only in heaven?" "Yes, yes. This is the drink of heaven. Only the fortunate get to drink it. You are now in heaven. We are the Auris, ready to serve you," Sana answered, theatrically. Bidadi began to worry. "If I am in heaven, then where is he?" she asked. Sana did not stop her naughtiness. Instead, she tore off the string of jasmine flowers from her hair, went behind Bidadi, and threw it into her lap, replying, See, he is right behind you. He is throwing jasmine flowers at you. But you must not turn back and look." Bidadi was ecstatic. She did not turn back and hesitantly touched the jasmine flowers in her lap. After a while, she said, "I want Abi Kausar." Watching the 2 of them, Azim neither stopped Sana nor got angry with her. He could not decide whether the situation that seemed to be bringing so much joy to Bidadi was really making her happy, or whether she was, like Sana, acting. He gave his glass to her. She happily put the glass to her lips. The moment the doorbell rang, Asima took the plates and glasses and ran into the kitchen. They wiped their hands and mouths and sat still. Even Azim glanced at the door cautiously. Shamim Banu came inside the house, and their drama ended. After drinking the Abi Kausar, many of Bidadi's problems vanished. What issues can the residents of heaven have? She saw her husband around her, felt him, and found peace in her heaven at home. Once she drank that liquid, she never returned from her heavenly world. Even though there was no alcohol in it, Sana helplessly wondered how it had managed to intoxicate Bidadi. Every now and then when Bidadi asked, "Where is my huri?" and looked around, Shamim Banu did not know who she was searching for. But when she stepped out on some work, Sana would pretend to be a huri. It was mandatory to wear a sequin sari when she played the angel because that was how Bidadi imagined angels to look. If she didn't dress the part, Bidadi would feel sick and get agitated. Between the experience of her special drink in heaven and her own personal houri, Bidadi lost all connection to this world and lived peacefully in her husband's company. Even though Shamim Banu felt agonized when she saw Bidadi talk and laugh to herself, she was relieved there were no other problems. Never again did she try to send her to Arif's house. Sadat was also peaceful, knowing that his wife would never again throw Bidadi out. It was Azim who had problems now. He must continue the heaven drama, which had started without forewarning. Anger, tears, and stubbornness had left Bidadi, but still she did not touch food. Except for Abi Kausar, she seemed to need no other sustenance. Azim felt defeated trying to supply her with Abi Kausar. She began to demand the nectar of heaven whenever she felt like it. If he gave her coconut water, juice, or any other drink, she threw it away without hesitation. Azim's pocket money was spent entirely on the drink her tongue had got used to, and which made her happy. She talked about Abi Kausar relentlessly, even in front of Sadat and Shamim Banu. Both of them decided that she had lost her mind. Stuck in that mess, Azim borrowed money from his friends. He got fake accounts added to the family's tab at the provision store. In the end, unable to manage Bidadi's demands, he went and confessed to Arif. His uncle burst out laughing, and even though he slapped Azim's back a couple of times in mock anger, he arranged for him to get a bottle of the bubbly drink every day. Because of the heavenly drink, there seemed to be some peace and quiet in the house. Azim was sick with worry, wondering what to do if Bidadi died from only drinking Pepsi without eating any food. But Bidadi has been living for the last 6 months, as if to ease his fear. Shamim Banu is endlessly surprised. She wonders how this old woman is living on no food and just water. Trying to forget the Jah Namaz incident, Sadat thinks about his wife and tells himself, "Poor Shamim is a good woman. She behaves like this at times when the menopause jinn steps on her," thus drawing the conclusion convenient for him. Only Azim and Arif sometimes wish for Bidadi's death, though they pray it shouldn't be from malnutrition. Only if it is a natural death will they be spared the guilt of becoming her murderers. Meanwhile, Bidadi continues to live in the heaven she achieved so effortlessly, free from all worry, in the company of her long-lost husband, the Shroud. On days when it was impossible for Shazia to wake up in time for the dawn namaz, she would blame it on her high blood pressure and had a habit of saying she had no peace because of those damn tablets. Her mother used to say, "All this is Shaitan's game. Shaitan comes early in the morning, presses your legs, drapes a blanket around you, pats you back to sleep, and stops you from offering namaz. You must kick him away and practice waking up at the right time to pray." The idea of Shaitan being her personal servant and pressing her legs seemed romantic to Shazia, and so she'd pretend to kick him a few times, enjoying the thought. It became a habit for her to wake up late and blame Shaitan for it. She was deep asleep that day too, and it was well past dawn. She woke up with a start and looked down at herself, unsure of where she was, though she touched her husband when she stretched her hand to the side. It was only when she noticed that her head was on her own pillow, that her imported blanket was draped around her body, that she realized she was in her own room in her own house. This made her both happy and content to wake up in a familiar environment, but contentment did not last long. She heard someone crying outside, and by the time she slowly got up and went to the door, she heard her son Farman speaking. She hurriedly came out to the veranda and saw Altaf standing there, looking distraught. Farman was consoling him. "What has happened, he said. "All this is in nobody's hands. Don't worry. Go home. I will get everything to your house once Ammi wakes up. She is asleep now. Let me not wake her up. She is not very well. The doctor has told her to get lots of rest." "But Paya, the Jamaat has decided that the burial will be tonight at 5. There is no one else we are waiting for. That's why the ghusl and other rituals must be done quickly," Altaf repeated. Farman lost his temper and said, "Look, you did not give me any kafan for safekeeping. It is already 7 years since Ammi returned from Hajj. Why didn't Yasin Bua take her shroud from Ammi all these years ago? Or maybe she took it and kept it somewhere. Search the house once again and see." Shazia felt shocked as she came and stood behind her son. "What is happening here?" she called. "Farman, who are you speaking with, Beta?" Farman turned towards his mother. Impatience had pressed itself on his face. He thought to himself, these women cannot be quiet, eat, dress up, and mind their own business. If they don't get involved in one thing or the other, it is as if their food won't be digested. But he did not express his disapproval and instead said, "Go sleep, Ammi. Why did you get up and come? Altaf is here. He says he is Yasin Bua's son. He is asking about some kafan. She felt as if she had been struck by 1,000 bolts of lightning. She anxiously rushed forward, looking at the young man questioningly, and asked in an angered tone, "What is all this ruckus you are creating first thing in the morning? Where will the kafan run away to? Don't you have the sense to know whose house you should go to, and when?" It became clear to her that Farman did not like all this. Altaf lowered his voice and stared back, distressed, and said, "Chikama, Ami died this morning around the time of the dawn namaz. That is why I came to ask for the kafan." The moment she heard the news, Shazia collapsed inwardly. Unable to control herself, she sat down with a thud on a chair nearby. The unimaginable, the impossible had happened. How to face it now? How to fix it? These thoughts did not remain within her control. She was devastated. "Oh God, what has ended up happening?" she lamented. Even though she didn't want it to, her mind raced back. There was a function in her house that day. Her family and friends had gathered in large numbers. Shazia and her husband Subhan were going on Hajj. They had already visited most of their closest relatives and friends. They had hugged everyone and requested that any kahasuna, any hurt they might have caused, any complaints their loved ones might have, any rumors the couple might have unwittingly spread be forgiven. These relatives had also laid out feasts for the couple, given them both whatever clothes and gifts they could afford, assured them of their forgiveness, and requested that Shazia and Subhan forgive any transgressions too. Content that their mistakes were mutually forgiven and the protocol followed. Their closest family and friends had sent them off with light hearts. Even so, with a week left before their pilgrimage, there were still many relatives to meet. The husband and wife called up their family living in distant places and asked them for forgiveness for any mistakes they might have committed. Subhan, the owner of an extended business enterprise, and Shazia, the mistress of a spacious bungalow, did not have the time to meet all their family and friends individually before leaving. That was why they had organized a feast to bring everyone together. The ritual of asking for mutual forgiveness continued there too. The one who came, uninvited yet without any arrogance or ill will in her heart, was Yasin Bua. Her husband had given her 2 children within 3 years of marriage, and then walked away without a backward glance. He used to work as a loader at the APMC yard, and one day, while carrying a load, he died of a heart attack. After his death, she had not observed Idat. A very young woman back then, she wore a scarf around her head and started washing vessels in the front yards of several houses, sweeping and cleaning, a loner. Amidst weddings, festivals, ceremonies, birthdays, and bearing the chaos and happiness of such events in these houses to fill the empty stomachs of her little children. During the Idat, she did not sit with her head covered in a room, praying for her departed husband and observing the mandatory period of mourning. Many tongues wagged. Despite the mud, slinging, however, the welfare and the hungry stomachs of her children were more important to her. Thanks to her hard work, her children built their lives. Having studied a little, her daughter taught the Quran to girls and earned a few rupees. Yasin Bua added this money to what she had managed to save herself, got her daughter married off, and lived with her son, an auto driver. When her bones started making creaky lada sounds, when the veins in her hands began to swell as age advanced, she cut back on working for others. She had a great wish to get her son married. But more than that, another desire had overtaken her heart and her body and her soul. All day long she became a kite around the flames of desire. Her habit of saving every single pays indicated not a miserly nature, but the anxiety of an unsecure future. When she took a little money out from the bundle that she had saved for her son's wedding to buy herself a shroud, she began to feel as if she had stolen it from someone else. She could not shake off her immense guilt. She became restless, and for 3 days tied the money to her seragu and protected it. But even her maternal instincts could not defeat the intensity of her private dream. A strange stubbornness to get her way doubled Yasin Bua's enthusiasm. She held on tightly to the bundle at the end of her sari and walked swiftly towards Shazia's house. There were a lot of people, celebrations, festivities underway there. She had no invitation. There was no one to welcome her, saying, "Oh, you have come." Neither was there anyone to say, "Come, eat," or to show her any hospitality. She had never in her life known what it meant to be honored and held in esteem. She did not recognize disrespect either. She worked as much as she could. Her hands nearly fell off washing the porcelain dinner plates. The grease of biryani doesn't wash off so easily now, does it? After everyone had eaten, she sat down on the cement in the front yard and had a few mouthfuls. All her attention was on Shazia. A lucky woman, a fortunate woman, she repeated to herself. She wondered when Shazia would be free, and how she could express her desire, all the while patiently observing everything Shazia was doing. When would Shazia find some free time? She was exhausted from receiving wishes and gifts from her innumerable relatives and friends. Some people ended up talking about their own life problems when they hugged and wished her well and asked her to say du'as for them during Hajj. Shazia Appa, I cannot find a suitable groom for my youngest daughter. Please say a du'a for her, one requested. Another asked, my sister-in-law is suffering from cancer. Please pray that she recovers soon. My son is not able to find a job. He is suffering a lot. Please say a du'a for him. The list of demands grew longer. Shazia kept replying with a smile, Inshallah, I will pray for them. And although she was getting tired, she did not show it and happily sent everyone off. Although they had organized the feast for lunch, people kept coming by well into the evening. Yasin Bua kept on washing vessels, cleaning the plates, sweeping, waiting her turn. At around 11 o'clock at night, when a tired Shazia finally sat on the sofa and stretched her legs out on the soft carpet, she saw Yasin Bua's shadow near the living room door. Bua was fretting. Ayu, poor thing, how tired this soul is, and felt bad for Shazia. She wiped both her hands on her seragu and tiptoed towards her, ensuring she did not set her dirty and cracked heels down on the precious carpet. When did you come, Bua? Shazia asked, reluctantly. Immensely happy to have finally met with Shazia, she replied, I came a long time ago, my dear. Oh, is it? I've barely seen you all. Evening, Shazia said, and in a softer tone inquired, did you eat? Yes, Ta'i. My life is still holding on to itself only because of the rice from your house. May everything you touch turn into gold. May your house prosper. Shazia felt gratified. It is already so late, Bua. How will you get home? To this very feminine of concerns, she replied, Altaf said he will take me home in his auto. I will leave the moment he comes. Shazia had noticed Yasin Bua occupied with some work or other the whole day, so she dragged her feet heavily to her room and brought out some money. Take this, Bua, some money for your expenses. We are leaving for Hajj in 3 days and will come back after 45 days. May Allah accept our Hajj. Please say a dua for us. She clasped both Bua's hands in hers and placed the money in them. Yasin Bua was overwhelmed. Her eyes welled up to see Shazia being so kind and friendly with even a fakir like her. She did not take the money from Shazia. Instead, she removed the 3 knots at the end of her sari and pulled out some crumpled notes. Extending her hands towards Shazia, she pleaded, Mayava, there is 6,000 rupees here. You are anyway going to Hajj. Please bring me a kafan from there after dipping it in the holy Zamzam water. At least I might go to heaven because of that holy shroud. For a moment, Shazia did not know what to say. It didn't seem like a difficult task at the time. Ayu, it is one kafan after all. I can bring it for her even if it costs a little more money, she thought to herself, finding herself taken in by the spontaneity of that situation. She did not think twice and agreed. It was when the notes passed from Bua's hands into her own that Shazia understood. Money from the pockets of poor people was, just like them, broken, shattered, crumpled, wrinkly, diminished in essence and form. She had at times felt that even if the poor were given crisp notes, the money would turn into something strange and ugly. Now she became sure of it. Okay, Bua, you go and come, she said, and sent her off. Shazia immediately went to the ensuite bathroom, placed the money on top of the sink, and washed her hands thoroughly with a disinfecting soap before lying down on her bed. Shazia did not remember if she picked up the money Yasin Bua had given her from the sink or not. Everyone boarded a morning flight arranged by the Hajj committee and reached Medina. With the new environment, visits to religious places, and the compulsory 40 namaz over their 8-day stay, she did not notice the time passing. Subhan had forbidden her from shopping. Yet what did she care about restrictions? She believed that rules were meant to be broken, and she did what she wanted without hesitation. This situation was no different. Subhan brought up the topic of niyat. Before they left for Hajj, they had set intentions for the pilgrimage and for prayers. He told her that she could do her shopping after Hajj, and made her believe that any shopping done during would spoil the niyat they had set. When they left Medina for Mecca, it was again a new experience for Shazia. She had forgotten her village and her house in the middle of all this. Her stay at Mecca was unforgettable. India's Hajj committee had rented out several buildings. Pilgrims were allotted rooms depending on the rent money they had paid in installments. For 2 rooms, there was one shared bathroom, along with one small shared kitchen, a gas cylinder and a stove, a fridge, a washing machine, and other facilities for the residents. Since 4 members of Shazia's maternal family had traveled together, they had been allocated a large room. As usual, the women in the group looked after the cooking. Most of their time was spent in namaz, encircling the Kaaba, in prayers and other religious activities, visiting the cave of Hira, where the Prophet received his first revelations, and other historically significant mosques, and offering namaz at the determined times kept them all occupied. The Saudi government, along with owners of large businesses and other donors, distributed food packets, juice, and water bottles from huge trucks to pilgrims after namaz. Since Hajj pilgrims were the guests of Allah, they believed that treating the pilgrims well would make Allah happy. Thus, everyone behaved as if hospitality was the main aim in life. Shazia and her group were making arrangements to finish the rest of the Hajj rituals. One afternoon, she came back from the Kaaba after offering namaz. Her eyes shut involuntarily, perhaps because of the hot sun, or maybe it was post-meal lethargy. When she woke up from her short nap, she felt a little refreshed. Soon the group had to go to Masjid al-Haram for the Asr namaz. When she went to the bathroom to perform wudu, she saw something that gave her pause. Zainab from the room next door was pouring water from their drinking water dispenser into a 10-liter bucket. Shazia was surprised and asked, "Zainab, what are you doing?" Zainab looked around her and said, "I have to wash the kafan." "What did you say?" Shazia asked, her anger rising. "You are stealing drinking water. Is this fair? You have not let go of your cheap behavior even during Hajj." She started shouting, and Zainab quickly ran into her room with the bucket, slamming the door shut. Shazia realized what was going on. The Saudi government was responsible for supplying drinking water to the pilgrims. The water companies did not bring it in huge plastic tubs. Instead, they would load tankers with Zamzam water from the well inside the Kaaba complex and use that to fill up the dispenser shared by the 2 rooms. It held 10 to 15 liters and was refilled at around 3 o'clock every afternoon. Shazia rarely got drinking water from it. Most nights, Subhan would buy a 5-liter bottle for their use on his way back from namaz. Shazia was furious. Zainab's feeble answer only made her feel like her body was on fire. Disillusioned by her audacity, she wondered how many shrouds Zainab had soaked in the stolen drinking water. Ya Allah! Was she going to make her entire family lie in Zamzam, soaked coffins? Shazia imagined all this, and Subhan, who upon hearing his wife's loud voice had come running out of the room, arrived to see her hooting with laughter. Unsure whether he had imagined her shouting just a moment ago, he asked his wife, "What is it, Shazia? What is making you laugh so much?" Continuing to laugh, she told him what had happened and said, "Look at this, Reed. These people cannot understand the importance of Hajj. They come here and cheat even for little things like this." He smiled slightly and replied, "Did you get to know this only today? I noticed it the day we got here, but I didn't get angry and pick a fight like you. This is why I started buying water for our use. Let it go. It is not something to fight over." Shazia suddenly remembered Bua's kafan. "And then, look here. We have to buy a kafan for Yasin Bua. Let's do that when we return from the evening namaz," she said, remembering her promise and deciding to honor it right away. He nodded and got ready hurriedly, for it was getting late. As they had anticipated, Al-Haram was busy by the time they reached it. The women and men gathered separately according to practice. They were all standing between the pillars of the mosque, hands folded reverentially, heads bent. Since they were late, Shazia and Subhan stood next to each other in the mosque's extensive yard, which filled up very quickly with other latecomers. It was sunny, and the huge umbrellas programmed to open automatically when the sun was out had spread their wings wide to provide shade. As the sun went down, the wings folded in to look like pillars. Shazia always found them a fascinating sight. After the Isha namaz, they walked back from the Kaaba complex. With lakhs and lakhs of people walking on the main road and the side streets, Subhan could not figure out where they might find a kafan shop for Shazia to buy one for Yasin Bua. He walked on, holding his wife's hand tightly, worried about having to look for her amidst all the people should she get lost. He had made a habit of holding hands with her or wrapping his arm around her waist without any shyness or hesitation. He had to walk a little slower and match his stride to his wife's saunter. Before pulling her in, he stood before each shop to first confirm that they sold kaffans. Yet, while looking for kaffans, a carpet shop stole all of Shazia's attention. She was so taken in by the wares, it looked like she would never leave. She found the beauty, the designs, the colors, the weaving at the center very attractive. Without asking her husband, she began to bargain over the price of one, and Subhan's plan to stop her from shopping crumbled. The fact that her niyat would be ruined, that her intentions would now be in doubt, were emotional matters that flew out with the wind. Nor was she moved by his promise that she could shop as much as she wanted once the Hajj rituals were complete. He tried his best to get her out of that shop, but all his efforts were in vain. Unmindful of everything and everyone, she was lost in the Turkish carpet she had chosen. Defeated, Subhan whispered to the shop assistant, "Can we get kaffans here?" The assistant instantly brought out a shroud, wrapped in plastic and heavy as a corpse. Subhan tried his best to catch Shazia's attention. She held onto the carpet firmly and tried to lift the kaffan with her left hand. "Ay yappa, how heavy this is. How can we take this and go back?" she said, dismissing the matter in an instant and returning her attention to the carpet. Finally, her shopping was over. Subhan counted out notes from his pocket and walked out, placing the carpet the shopkeeper had packed on his shoulder. They could not expect to find an auto rickshaw or a coolie there, so he lugged the carpet himself, and although he hoped no one would see him, he kept coming across people he knew. Midway, Shazia also felt bad and tenderly asked, "It is not too heavy, is it, Ree?" He did not utter a word. He was furious enough to beat her senseless, but he very patiently dumped the devil carpet in a corner of their room and let out a sigh. Under any other circumstance, he would have at least glared in anger, maybe. Scolded her too. But since this was Hajj, and since the others in the room were all her relatives, he calmed himself. Their Hajj pilgrimage ended. Although they worried over mistakes made here and there, they were both satisfied. Once they returned from Mina, Shazia took to her bed, which was cause for some anxiety. Her blood pressure had shot up, and she had to be admitted to the hospital for 2 days. It was only after her discharge and a day of rest that her blood pressure came under control. More than anything, however, she was annoyed about wasting her shopping time. She insisted her health was fine in front of Subhan, and soon began to feel better. He thought of various strategies to put off the shopping. He was not worried about money, but having seen the problems that excess luggage can lead to in flights, he did not want to fall into that trap. But neither did he want to disappoint her or make her blood pressure shoot up again uncontrollably, so all his plans to curtail her shopping foundered. There was no one to stop Shazia. While rushing about on her shopping spree, thoughts of Yasin Bua and her kaffan passed regularly through Shazia's mind in flashes, coming and going, until eventually they began to hide and she soon forgot about the matter completely. In this magical place, to think of a depressing, heavy object like a kaffan taking up so much space. Oh God, can't one get it in India also? Won't we get it in our village also? I can say that I couldn't find it in Mecca. Can I tell such lies the moment I return from Hajj? She said, Tauba, Tauba, lightly hitting her cheeks. She said goodbye to lies. She had not expected Yasin Bua's desire to end up being such a bother. Now, hearing of Yasin Bua's death, Shazia was distraught, thinking about the consequences of that unfulfilled wish. Ayu, if she had known, she would have kept her word, even if she had had to face some difficulties as a result. She agonized. When they had returned, she had bought so much stuff that her excess had to be distributed among the baggage of others in their group. By the time he managed it, Subhan was exhausted. Then there were the 5-liter cans of Zamzam water to distribute to everyone, several kilos of dates. And weren't all these things heavy too? All she had done, wearing her burqa, was hold on to her handbag and run to her husband for every little thing, which only made him more irritated. Finally, after a great deal of trouble, they'd managed to load all their bags and themselves on the flight. Even a month after their return, Shazia had not finished distributing everything to everyone. For the first 3 days, she couldn't get out of bed because of ill health and jet lag. After that, there was the unpacking. Then she made arrangements to send the gold and other expensive gifts she had bought for her nearest and dearest ones. She unrolled the precious carpet and felt happy. She did not even notice Subhan's lack of reaction. He had just walked away, irritated. Then she distributed clothes, toys, etc. to everyone she had bought them for. A few of her closest friends and some close relatives had told her that they wanted burqas with this particular design and kasudi work in these particular colors, cut in such style with such and such embroidery. Some had given her money. For others, she sent the burqas as gifts out of a sense of obligation. For everyone else, she dispatched one jah, namaz, prayer beads, a fistful of dates, and a bottle of Zamzam water. Although she didn't do everything herself, she had to supervise it, and the whole task tired her. Over a month had passed by the time she finished. There is a belief that those who return from Hajj embody immense positive and spiritual energies. In order to ensure that these energies are not wasted and instead are used to offer prayers to Allah, Muslims stay at home for a period of about 40 days, observing this practice strictly, like a vow. Shazia observed this too. As was her habit, Yasin Bua came to the house a few times and returned without announcing her presence. Each time Shazia was either asleep or was resting or doing namaz, else was occupied with some important work. These were the messages given to Yasin Bua, who was in tears. On one hand, she was very impatient to see her kafan. On the other hand, she was eager to stand close to the Hajj. Returned Shazia, to take her hands in her own rough ones, to clasp them. She waited and waited, in the hope that Shazia might have brought some gift for her. Finally, Shazia made an appearance, having borne witness to Bua's excruciating period of waiting. She had just had a bath, and her hair was still half wet. When she came out wearing a grand sky blue churidar set, fashionably draping a matching kasuti-embroidered dupatta on her head, Yasin Bua could have burst with happiness. Her joy knew no bounds when she ran and pressed Shazia's hands to her eyes. Touching the hands of a Hajjin made her feel as if she too had become spiritually pure, and she got goosebumps on her arms. Shazia freed her hands and made small talk. "How are you, Bua?" She swiftly went into her room to get a janamaz and prayer beads and gave it to her. "Take it, this is for you." What Yasin Bua wanted to see was not there. That was the moment. Her desire to journey towards Allah wrapped in a Zamzam water-soaked kafan was going to be fulfilled. She did not stretch out her hands to take her gifts, but only looked at Shazia in disbelief, blinded for a moment by disappointment. Drawing on some internal courage, she addressed Shazia, speaking very clearly in a firm tone. "I don't want these. Give me my kafan." Not expecting this, Shazia got very angry. Without bothering to hide it, she scolded Bua in a loud voice. "Shay!" Does anyone say no to a prayer mat? But Bua did not budge an inch. She stood her ground. "I still have the janamaz that your mother-in-law gave me after she returned from Hajj. I offer namaz on it when I get time. Where will I keep such a new and beautiful janamaz? How much longer do I have to live? How many more namaz will I offer? Society is telling me to go, and the forest is calling me to come and retire. All I want is the kafan." Shazia had never seen Yasin Bua like this before. Bending at the waist in reverence while walking, Bua would praise Shazia to the skies every other minute, cracking her knuckles to remove any evil eye on her beauty, always wishing her well. "May Allah give you a long life, give you wealth. May your family be well. May your marital status be safe. May Allah give you a coral house in heaven." Where was the Bua who always showered her with blessings, always saying du'as for her? Who was this Bua who was standing so stiffly? Shazia's anger bubbled and flowed over. She forgot that she had only recently returned from Hajj. What kafan? Which kafan after falling down dead? Someone or other will put you in a kafan. Why make such a fuss? What has happened to you, Bua? Have you lost your mind? How much money did you give me? I will throw 10 times that at your face. Wait, and hereafter don't show your face too. Me again, she screamed, and angrily rushed to her room. When she came out holding 2 500 rupee notes, she could not see Yasin Bua anywhere. Given her temper, she was unlikely to let Bua go so easily. She hurried into the kitchen. She went to the backyard. She peeped into the gully nearby, but no matter where she looked, she couldn't see Bua anywhere. Thinking, let her go to hell, she dumped the notes on the teapoy and lay down on the sofa. As Shazia had wanted, Yasin Bua did not come into her sight again. Thinking it was good riddance, she relaxed into a sense of peace and contentment. But how could Bua do this? The question rose up in her mind now and then and raked up the anger hidden in her memory. But what could she do when Bua would not show her face? Let her go? Maybe she would come by for Ramzan or Bakrid to beg. She hoped that Bua, who would bend her back and become small enough to fit inside a fist, would come by during Ramzan. But Bua's self-respect was not to be underestimated. She had been so eager for one look at her kafan, for one touch, like a bride awaiting her nikah gift. The way Shazia, decked up in jewelry and grand clothes, had treated her like a lowly destitute had left a permanent scar in her heart. Even in her wildest dreams, she had not thought that Bua would haunt her after death. She collapsed under the weight of sudden anguish. What must she do? What must she not do? Even if Bua asked for a kafan costing 1 lakh rupees, Shazia was ready to give it to her. But a kafan from Mecca that had been soaked in holy Zamzam water, Ya Allah, what to do? She agonized over how to rectify her mistake. What shall I do? What shall I do? Holding her mobile phone anxiously and hurrying upstairs to take refuge in a corner of an empty room. Whether it was her body temperature rising, or whether she was shivering, or why she was sweating, she didn't know. How unfortunate. If this poor woman were to hold out her seragu and beg Allah for justice on Judgment Day, even if I poured out all my good deeds, I will still be at fault, Shazia thought, alarmed. It became clear to her that she was poorer than Bua, more unfortunate too. That kafan had been the dead woman's last wish. Otherwise, why would her son come looking for it? Why would he beg for it on his dead mother's behalf? He spoke softly, but it was evident that he was determined to fulfill her last desire. How could she get out of this? A shiver ran down her spine. If he did not agree to use any other kafan, her burial would not take place that day. The Jama'at would call her husband and son to the masjid and question them. The thought of them standing with their hands folded and heads bent frightened her. Farman would certainly not let her off. He was as capable of cruelly belittling her as he was of loving her. Her thoughts flew back and forth and fluttered around like a kite. She sat and cried till it felt like her heart would burst with sorrow, her cries coming out in gasps. Did she feel light after crying so much? No. Intense sorrow stuck in her throat. Even to her enemies, she did not wish God to give such agony. She began to struggle to take breath. A ray of hope arose after she had spent 1-2 hours sitting and crying alone. She could hear Subhan's voice from downstairs. He was calling for her loudly. Shazia, Shazia, where are my clothes? Where is my pen? Is my breakfast ready? Although she heard him, her voice refused to come out. But Saba answered him straight away. Coming out of her room, she said, Abaji Ammi is not at home. News came early in the morning that someone had died. She must have gone there. What? Who died? Who told you? He asked. Farman told me, and went out without having breakfast or drinking tea. Ami must have gone with him too, she suggested. Shazia let out a deep sigh of relief. No matter how terrible Saba was being the daughter-in-law, she had all the cunningness that came with the role. Shazia felt a little softness for her after that. She was arranging chapatis and palia for Subhan in porcelain vessels on the dining table, serving him food made by the cook. After a while, she heard Subhan's car drive to the gate and then beyond the compound wall. There was no use crying any more. Now she felt she had to try and do something. Shazia had not shed this many tears when other people had died, not even her own father. Then again, on those occasions, there were innumerable people around to make her drink water, to wipe her tears away with cotton dipped in rose, water to soothe her back, to hug her to their chests and console her, friends and relatives falling over each other to help. Surrounded by all that, her sorrow was manageable. Having to hide in a corner of the house, however, alone like an orphan, this was something she had brought upon herself. She must get out of it now. Having made a decision, she swiftly began calling her relatives and friends. I'm looking for a kafan that has been soaked in Zamzam water. Her query would not even be complete when they would reply, Is it Shazia? No, we don't have a kafan at home. Our mother brought one when she went on Hajj, but we gave it to whoever had asked for it and finished the job. Another reacted. What? You want a kafan? Laughter. We don't keep kafans in our house. We don't make promises to anyone about bringing a kafan. That is a bothersome task. Yet another responded, What is the need for a kafan from there? So what if the kafan is from here? It is only according to our deeds that we reap benefits in the afterlife, isn't it? After hearing no from everyone, Shazia called Saba's mother, though she did not want to, though her heart was not okay with it. Once the formalities of hello were over, she put her dignity and self-respect aside and came to the point. Might you have a kafan brought from Mecca with you? Saba's mother did not like Shazia very much. According to Saba's regular dispatches, Shazia was a muttering demon, a cruel woman who kept a sharp eye on her daughter-in-law, a witch who gave her too much grief, a python in the way of her peace. Given all this, Saba's mother was willing to arrange for a kafan at any cost, provided it was meant for Shazia herself. She asked, "Do you want the kafan?" and paused for a few seconds to let the emphasis sink in. "But why do you want it?" she asked. Her sarcasm was clear, and Shazia cut the call wordlessly. Starting from her own maternal home, this request for a kafan expanded and spread to all her relatives and friends. She had never imagined she could be this helpless and shed a flood of tears again. Realizing it was no use crying, she decided to come out of her room, have something to eat, and take her medicines. But none of these made her any better. Feeling defeated, she wondered if she should get a kafan locally, soak it in the Zamzam water stored at home, and send it there. But that would not be a kafan from Mecca. Disgusted with the abyss into which she was falling, she helplessly cursed herself. "Thu, Shazia, may your life be damned." The pain, the agony, the loss of dignity, the helplessness and suffering of that moment could not be explained in words. Farman came home around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Walking up to the dining table, he asked Saba, "Where is Ammi?" She had guessed that her mother-in-law was in a very bad mood and said nothing, instead gesturing towards Shazia's room with her eyes. Farman rushed in, and despite his mother's wordlessness, he understood everything when he saw her face. He sat next to her and said, "Ammi," holding her hand. Shazia found a shoulder to cry on. No matter how hard he tried to console her, she kept crying in gasps. Was my mother-in-law so sensitive that she is grieving the death of a servant this much? Wondered Saba, surprised. She was standing by the door. Farman gestured to his wife and sent her away. He had been upset with Shazia in the morning. She should not have agreed to this. But after agreeing, shouldn't she have kept her promise? What is the big deal in bringing one kafan? That too for that poor woman. He had felt very bad. Couldn't Ummi have told us to bring it when Saba and I went to Umrah last year at least? I would have brought it. Wondering why bringing the kafan had become such a problem, he'd come close to blaming her, but stopped just short and managed to calm down. Feeling sorry for how much she had suffered, he said, "Ummi, leave it. Sometimes these things happen. Whether because of forgetfulness or just bad luck, these things end up happening. Don't take it to heart. Also, Ummi, I went with Altaf to his house in the morning, finished all the burial rituals for Bua, and just got back. I bought a kafan, incense sticks, perfume, and other things needed for the rituals, then had the grave dug at the spot he had chosen in the graveyard, and arranged for the bathing of the corpse. I thought I would have lunch and then take you with me. I know you will not be at peace otherwise. Come have lunch with me. Then we will go and see Yasin Bua one last time." Shazia's sorrow rose again. Farman pushed a plate of food before her. After a little rice went into her stomach, he told Saba, "You don't have to come. It is enough if only Ammi comes," and took his mother to Yasin Bua's house. He pictured all that was going to happen there. After seeing Yasin Bua's face, she was going to burst into tears again. Perhaps Shazia had shed as many tears as Yasin Bua's daughter and son had, but still she was not going to forgive herself. He realized that she was going to continue grieving. When they reached Yasin Bua's house, everything happened just like he had known it would. There was no end to Shazia's sorrow, no drought for her tears. Those who saw her face, her reddened eyes, her swollen lips were surprised. Many people sympathized, thinking that they had never seen a woman from a prominent rich family feel so much grief over the death of a servant. Who knows what kind of relationship they had, they thought, before shifting the burden onto God. Only God knows. Shazia alone knew the truth. It was not Yasin Bua's last rites being conducted, but her own.